Tomorrow from 8:30 to noon, the San Jose Institute for the Study of Sport, Society, and Social Change will hold a town hall called Words to Action, Gender, Sports, and Society.
The event is open to the public, and it will include female athletes and sports executives discussing gender equality and women's rights.
For more on this, we are joined by Professor Ted Butryn, San Jose State professor and interim director of the Institute, holding the town hall. Professor, good morning to you.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Great to have you. Let me begin with kind of coming off the Olympics and the Winter Games right now, because I was reading a report from the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, that said for the first time in the history of the Winter Games, right, there were more or nearly as many female athletes as there were male. I think the actual number was 43% of all athletes were females. And I mention this because my question is, how essential is it, at least on the world stage, to have visible female athletes?
Well, I think we're going to be talking about a lot of those issues tomorrow at our town hall meeting on gender, sport, and society. We'll have a number of female athletes. And I think if you ask, our first panel tomorrow is going to be comprised of trailblazers who did not have the luxury of having any media coverage. In fact, some of them were out winning Olympic medals before there was even a Title IX to speak of. So I think the current research in the sociology of sport and media in sport as it relates to gender suggests really clearly that although things are improving, it's still very important to show the representation of women across different sports so that young female athletes have role models to look up to growing up.
This doesn't factor in for student athletes, Professor Butryn, but when you look ahead to the professional level, many people point to the fact that female athletes in the same sport as men are still paid far less, their prizes are far less. How important is money in all of this?
Well, I think money is power, and I think one of the ways you're seeing power playing quite a role is if you look at the issue of athlete activism. One of the things that the financial resources have done has made it much more possible for male and female athletes to say what they want, to speak out, for example, WNBA players, NBA players. So I think that economic equity is something that we're seeing also at the intersection of sport and society. We're seeing it, for example, in Hollywood, in the way that female actresses have now spoken out in terms of them clearly not getting compensated at the level of their male counterparts. And I think you're going to see that filter down and be reflected in the area of sport as well.
Professor, because of the Me Too movement, do you think that has added impetus to any of these conversations when it comes to, equality for women and girls in sports?
Oh, 100%. I think anytime something, whether it's the president using social media to talk about sport, the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement, whenever anything related to gender equity, domestic violence, sexual abuse in sport, anything related to gender in sport in the larger society happens, you're certainly going to see that reflected back in sport. And I think what you see happen in sport will then reflect back on larger society and contribute to that dialogue and hopefully provide some impetus for the change that we need.
What about leadership roles in sports? Not necessarily the athletes. I'm talking executive directors of this or that. Still a scarcity when it comes to women in leadership positions and the importance of having more women in leadership positions in sports.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. In fact, our second panel tomorrow is a group of women administrators, women coaches, women in the front office, women in the sport media. I mean, if you look at who creates the sport media, it's by and large white and by and large male. So I think the voices that you're going to hear, particularly in the second panel tomorrow at our town hall meeting, will show very clearly that women have certainly broken through glass ceilings in various domains in sport, but they still encounter obstacles, and I think hearing their voices will show us some ways where how can we open more doors for women across the domains of sport outside of the playing field.
All right, San Jose State professor Ted Butryn, thank you for your time, and have a great event tomorrow. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to add, please join the live feed if you aren't able to make it live at we're at sgsuwordstoaction.com.
Bingo. Thank you, Professor. Again, we have more ticket information or more information about the tickets for you on our own website, too, ktv.com. Look for it in the web link section right there under the Mornings on 2 tab. You can also find it on the good old KTVU mobile.